Imagine if I told you that Pontius Pilate deeply regretted his part in Jesus' death. Even long after the crucifixion, how would you respond? Did you know that Pilate actually wrote a letter to Emperor Tiberius, where he talked about Jesus? In this letter, Pilate described Jesus' miracles, the trial, the crucifixion, and yes, even his resurrection. But what exactly did Pilate say in this letter? Pontius Pilate discussing Jesus. What might he have shared with the emperor about the resurrection of the Son of God? And did you know that this letter includes astonishing details about what Jesus looked like, details that aren't even mentioned in the Gospels? This episode will dive into what's inside that letter and what it reveals about Jesus. As we read through parts of the letter Pilate wrote to Caesar about Jesus Christ, I encourage you to form your own judgment. Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar the Emperor. Greetings. In these recent times, a man of remarkable virtue has emerged, named Jesus Christ, who still lives among us. The Gentiles regard him as a true prophet, while his followers call him the Son of God. He has brought the dead back to life and healed all kinds of illnesses. A man of somewhat tall and attractive stature, with a face that commands both love and respect from those who see him. His hair is the color of ripe chestnuts, smooth and straight to his ears, and below that, it becomes more radiant, curling and flowing over his shoulders. There is a distinct part in the middle of his head in the style of the Nazarites. His forehead is smooth and very refined, his face flawless and free of wrinkles, with a beautiful rosy complexion. His nose and mouth are perfectly shaped, leaving nothing to be criticized. His beard is somewhat thick, matching the color of his hair, not very long but forked. His expression is both innocent and mature, with gray eyes that are clear and sharp. When correcting others, he is formidable, but when offering advice, he is gentle and kind, speaking with grace. In conversation, he is pleasant, blending warmth with seriousness. No one can remember ever seeing him laugh, but many have seen him shed tears. His body is excellently proportioned, with hands and arms that are pleasing to the eye. His speech is always calm, humble, and wise. A man of extraordinary beauty, surpassing all others. Eventually, the chief priests, out of envy, sought to end his life. They approached me with an accuser named Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. They brought him to me by force, and when I questioned him about their accusations, he answered with great humility, showing no resistance, though his words were sometimes marked by great eloquence. When I inquired about his religion, he responded, "O Caesar, I am a king, but my kingdom is not of this world." I then asked him if he was a god, and he answered, "You say it. For I am the truth and the life, the good shepherd, and the door amidst the chaos caused by the Jews trying to bring him down. I ordered him to be crucified according to their law." At the very moment of his crucifixion, darkness covered the entire world. The sun was darkened at noon, stars shone brightly, and the moon, appearing like blood, lost its light. The whole universe was darkened, and the dead in their graves rose and appeared to many. Troubled by these events, I quickly took water and washed my hands, trying to clear myself of the blood of this innocent man, unlike anyone else I have ever encountered. When you read this letter and see how much detail Pilate provides about Jesus, it's clear he put a lot of effort into describing him. Why? Simply put, there were no cameras or ways to take pictures back then. So describing someone important in detail was crucial to convey their appearance accurately. With this detailed description, anyone reading the letter would easily recognize Jesus either in person or from other accounts. The letter goes on recent events in my region have been so significant that I felt it was important to detail them as they happened. I wouldn't be surprised if over time these events could alter the fate of our nation, especially since it seems lately that the gods have stopped favoring us. I almost want to curse the day I took over from Valerius Gratus as the governor of Judea. Of all the cities I governed, Jerusalem seemed the hardest to manage. The people were so restless that I was constantly afraid of an uprising. To control the situation, I had only one centurion and a small group of soldiers. I asked the prefect of Syria for additional troops, but he told me he barely had enough to protect his own province. I worry that our desire for conquest, pushing our empire beyond its capacity to defend itself, may ultimately lead to its downfall. These were the concerns expressed by Pontius Pilate. Pause and think about the importance of this passage. Pilate's message to Caesar reveals something surprising. The defense of Jerusalem relied on just one centurion from his cohort, which usually had only a few soldiers. Valerius Gratus, who was Pontius Pilate's predecessor, shared his frustrations with ruling Judea. He found Jerusalem especially challenging to govern because of its restless people. This background sets the scene for Pilate's own account of the difficult situation he inherited. Pilate's report shows that the military resources he had were inadequate for keeping order in Jerusalem, despite the city's potential for unrest. With just one centurion and a small group of soldiers, the limited troops reveal how precarious Roman authority was and the challenges he faced in managing possible rebellions. Pilate's concerns about stretching his resources too thin and the lack of adequate military support influenced his decisions, including how he managed Jesus' trial and crucifixion. Now, let's return to Pilate's letter. Out of the many rumors that reached me, one in particular caught my interest. Reports told of a young man in Galilee who was preaching a new law with great fervor, claiming it came from the gods. At first, I feared he might be trying to turn the people against the Romans, but those concerns were soon eased. Jesus of Nazareth appeared to speak more in support of the Romans than against them. While passing through the crowded area of Siloam, I noticed a young man leaning against a tree and addressing the crowd with calmness. I was told that this was Jesus. The difference between him and the people around him was so noticeable that it made it clear who he was. His golden hair and beard gave him a heavenly look. He seemed to be around 30 years old. I have never seen a face that looked so gentle and peaceful. The difference between him and his listeners was striking, with their dark beards and sun-darkened skin contrasting sharply with his appearance. Let's pause to reflect on this, as it might be the only historical account describing Jesus' appearance. The notable detail here is his golden hair and beard, which sets him apart in historical records. In an earlier version of the letter, Jesus was described as having chestnut-colored hair. Though this detail is similar, it brings up questions about the letter's authenticity. Was this detail added by later scribes who copied the document, or did Jesus actually have lighter hair and a beard compared to others of his time? Some believe this could be a later addition, but there's no certainty. Regardless, it is quite fascinating. Personally, though, it doesn't make a significant difference to me. Returning to Pilate's report not wanting to interrupt Jesus by my presence, I kept walking but signaled to my secretary, Menelaus, to join the crowd and listen. Menelaus, my secretary, was the grandson of the chief conspirator who had camped in Etruria waiting for Catiline. He was a longtime resident of Judea and fluent in Hebrew. Devoted and trustworthy, he had earned my complete confidence. When I arrived at the Praetorium, Menelaus shared with me the things Jesus had said at Siloam. I have never come across anything in philosophical texts or other teachings that matches the wisdom of Jesus' words. One of the many rebellious Jews in Jerusalem asked him if paying tribute to Caesar was lawful. Jesus responded, "Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God." It was because of the wisdom in this saying that I allowed the Nazarene so much freedom. Although I had the authority to arrest him and banish him to Pontus, doing so would have gone against the justice that Romans are known for. This man was neither rebellious nor a threat. I quietly offered him my protection, likely without his knowledge. He was free to act, speak, gather crowds, and choose disciples without any restrictions from the Praetorium. However, this unrestricted freedom given to Jesus angered the Jews, especially the wealthy and powerful, rather than the poor. Jesus was harsh towards the rich, and in my view, this was a political reason not to limit the Nazarenes' freedom. Jesus would often rebuke the scribes and Pharisees, calling them a brood of vipers and comparing them to whitewashed tombs. He would also mock the pride of the publican's alms, telling him that the humble offering of a poor widow was more valuable in God's eyes. Every day, new complaints about Jesus' boldness were brought to the Praetorium. I received warnings that misfortune might befall him, as Jerusalem had a history of stoning those who claimed to be prophets. They also threatened to appeal to Caesar if the Praetorium didn't deliver justice. Despite this, the Senate supported my approach, and I was promised reinforcements after the Parthian War. Lacking the strength to quell an uprising, I chose a strategy that I believed would restore calm in the city without degrading the Praetorium's authority. Dear viewers, I hope you've been paying close attention. Pilate was well aware of Jesus for quite some time, but he permitted him the freedom to preach and move freely because he saw no signs of rebellion in him. Despite the pressure from the Jewish religious leaders at the time, Pilate couldn't find any grounds to prosecute Jesus. That changed when it became necessary for him. Faced with the threat of a Jewish uprising and aware that his limited military resources wouldn't be enough to keep control, he decided to sacrifice Jesus. Pilate surrendered Jesus to maintain peace in Jerusalem. It's quite striking, isn't it, considering what we know about Jesus' mission? Despite this, Pilate hesitated to crucify Jesus at first, but ultimately handed him over to calm the political tensions and avoid any potential uprisings. It's evident that Pilate was an opportunist, concerned only with preserving his power and authority. Pilate may have washed his hands countless times, but the stain of innocent blood remains. However, we are thankful that he left this testimony behind. It serves as documentary evidence that Jesus truly lived and was crucified. Before we finish this episode, let's take a look at one more piece of evidence concerning Jesus the Pilate stone. This artifact, also known as the Pilate inscription, was uncovered near Caesarea Maritima in Israel. What does it say about Jesus' crucifixion? The Pilate stone is a dedicatory inscription carved into a limestone block. Its importance lies in its role as archaeological proof of Pontius Pilate's existence, the Roman governor of Judea, who is mentioned in the New Testament accounts of Jesus' trial and crucifixion. While we've been exploring Pilate's letter to Caesar, this artifact directly confirms that Pontius Pilate was a real historical figure who lived during Jesus' time. The Pilate stone inscription says to the divine Augusti, "This Tiberium, Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea." Roman officials frequently considered themselves gods, which explains the phrase "to the divine Augusti." Nowadays, we know that Caesarea Maritima, where this artifact was discovered, is located on the Mediterranean coast of Israel. Caesarea Maritima was an important city and administrative hub during Roman times. The Pilate stone was discovered reused in a staircase leading up to a theater at the site. Archaeologists identified it by the Latin inscription carved into the limestone block. To sum up, the Pilate letter and the Pilate stone together establish the historical reality of Pontius Pilate and corroborate the accounts of Jesus' ministry and crucifixion. They also offer insights into Jesus' physical appearance that aren't mentioned in the canonical Bible. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. May God bless you. Amen.